Marching for workers' rights on Labor Day and the San Diego contract disputes.
We decided that as a staff that we needed to do something to help Texas.
Inspired to give, the San Diego schools sending supplies and support to the survivors of Hurricane Harvey. And hitting the waves in Oceanside, the Labor Day tradition swimming strong after 88 years. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Good evening. Thanks for joining us. I'm Amitha Sharma. This Labor Day was marked by demonstrations in San Diego today. Hundreds of protesters marched for raising the minimum wage and a new contract for county workers. KPBS reporter Steve Walsh has the story.
We're here at the county building. This morning, a group of labor unions marked Labor Day with a march starting at near City College and moving all the way down here to the county building. It began as a demonstration aimed at increasing the minimum wage to $15 an hour. Brian Jimenez works as a janitor in San Diego, making roughly $11 an hour. He says it isn't enough to live on his own.
It's really hard to make a decent living here in San Diego or anywhere.
This is Union territory! This is Union territory!
The Fight for 15 demonstrators were joined by the Service Employees International Union 221, which represents county workers. The union has already announced a two-day strike starting September 12th. Patricia Estrada said bargaining has reached a stalemate since after the contract expired in June.
The county has a take it or leave it attitude. They say, here's that 5-year contract. Negotiating is about coming to a common ground.
Among the leaders who spoke was State Assembly member Todd Gloria. Steve Walsh, KPBS News.
To mark Labor Day, a coalition of labor unions is reminding people about the workers who help make the world run. KPBS reporter Taryn Mento has the story.
So we all have the same bus, and our buses are like our cars. People are very territorial about their buses, let me tell you.
That's San Diego Unified School Bus driver Christy Williams. The 26-year veteran is interim president for the local chapter of the California School Employees Association and the face of the San Diego Labor Council's We Are Labor campaign. The social media movement spotlights union members in a series of videos to highlight what they do and show appreciation for workers. Williams says it's a good reminder of the range of staffers helping run institutions, including the education system.
Before children ever get to a classroom, before they ever see their teachers, before they ever see the principal, they see their school bus driver. They see their food service worker when they get off the bus. And so before they get to that level in school and class and learning, they see us. And if it weren't for the mechanics that kept the buses on the roads and the plumbers that kept the toilets flushing in the school sites, then, the district would be at a halt.
The San Diego and Imperial County's Labor Council campaign also promotes the power of uniting around workplace causes.
We fight together to get raises, and without that union, you can't do it by yourself.
In a recent Gallup poll, 61% of those surveyed say they support organized labor, the most since 2003. But the Economic Policy Institute says union membership nationally is on the decline. Taryn Mento, KPBS News.
As residents of Houston look to recover after Hurricane Harvey, thousands of people are still displaced and living without basic necessities. Here in San Diego, one community spent Labor Day helping those in need. KPBS reporter Matt Hoffman has more.
All right, let's take it up. So, anything we can do to help our neighbors. I mean, we all have situations that come up where we need a little extra help.
Parents and teachers from Pershing Middle School in San Carlos spent their Labor Day collecting supplies for people affected by Hurricane Harvey.
We decided that as a staff that we needed to do something to help Texas.
So a group of teachers organized a donation drive Monday right in front of the middle school.
Amazing. Thank you. Bye. Have a great day. Have a great Labor Day. Bye. Thank you.
The Houston district reached out saying that they needed children's clothing, school supplies, new backpacks, new jackets. We donated some toys we figured at the shelters so they can play games and kick a soccer ball around.
Harvey's destruction may not be close to home, but people here believe in good karma.
I mean, we know having our fires and our issues that we have here, we might not necessarily have a lot of hurricanes and flooding, but we'll have our issues where we need help as well.
The teachers are still figuring out exactly how the supplies will get to Texas, but in the meantime are gathering as many as possible.
So we'll collect them in the morning in my room, and then we'll try to box them out and ship them out by the end of the week.
Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
Immigrants and social justice groups in San Diego are bracing for the president's decision on DACA. The White House says President Trump will decide tomorrow whether to continue the program that granted deportation relief to some 800,000 people who were brought to the country illegally as children. Christian Ramirez is Human Rights Director for Alliance San Diego. He says a decision from the president to end the program would not be the final word.
This is an executive order that was signed by President Obama, and certainly President Trump has the authority to rescind that order. However, in our country, there's still due process.
Either decision would get tangled up in court. 10 states say the program is unconstitutional and are also prepared to take legal action. San Diego State University administrators sent a letter to the president today in support of the DACA program. The letter was posted on the university's Twitter page amid reports that President Trump plans to end the program. The letter, signed by the university's interim president, says these individuals who arrived in this country too young to have made the decision to come here or to have understood any consequent impact on their citizenship have in fact excelled as students and as good citizens. Politico reported last night that White House sources say Trump plans to end the program, but with a 6-month delay. San Diego has 3 weeks to respond to a lawsuit challenging an ordinance that restricts where registered sex offenders can live. KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen says the path forward is unclear.
San Diego's so-called Child Protection Act bans registered sex offenders from living within 2,000 feet of places like parks, schools, and arcades. The law hasn't been enforced since 2009. The state Supreme Court has overturned similar ordinances, saying they're unconstitutional and do nothing to protect children. Chris Ward was one of 5 city council members who voted to uphold the law against the advice of the city attorney's office. In an interview explaining his vote, Ward acknowledged he had no data to show the law would be effective.
Well, I haven't seen data for or against that, but again, as this ordinance was enacted 8 years ago, I would hope that that was also based on some information that it would lead to a positive outcome for public safety for children.
In fact, the previous city council back in 2008 also had no data to show the law would protect children. They were presented with data showing such laws increase homelessness among sex offenders, making them more difficult to keep track of. They were also warned the law could violate the Constitution and result in a lawsuit. To see the full interview with Councilman Ward, go to kpbs.org. Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
Light rain and cooler temperatures helped stamp out the La Tuna fire that burned about 7,000 acres in Los Angeles County over the weekend. 4 homes were destroyed and 4 firefighters were injured in what fire officials are calling the largest wildfire in LA history. The fire started Friday afternoon and spread quickly, forcing the evacuation of more than 1,000 people. This is time-lapse footage of the fire looming over the city at its height on Saturday night. Evacuation orders have been lifted. Firefighters are hoping the weather continues to cooperate and as they build containment lines and extinguish hotspots. While San Diego experienced record heat over the weekend, there's been some relief this Labor Day, and it's a much different feel from Sunday's rain showers. But if you're thinking the summer is over, guess again. The National Weather Service has been tracking a high-temperature system building along the west coast. Meteorologist Alex Tardy says it could bring uncomfortable temperatures back to San Diego.
So what that means for us is another heat wave. It may not be as bad as what we saw last week, and last week we set records. Temperatures were getting close to 110 in Ramona, but this one will still be hot and much above normal.
Tardy says the weather this time of year is particularly hard to predict, but he says with all the recent heat here, it could stay hot into October. Cloudy skies in Oceanside today, but even with today's overcast weather, plenty of people still spent their Labor Day at the beach. What's on tap tomorrow? Julia Wyden has the forecast.
Hey, thanks for joining us. Here's the latest on your forecast. We have low-lying cloud cover coming back thanks to that marine layer filling on in. I expect to see fog pretty much every night for the next several nights, especially at the coast and in our valley areas. Cloud cover decreases through the day on Tuesday. We'll generally have sunshine Wednesday through the finish of the week. There goes some of that moisture. It was left over from Lydia. It's pulling off to our north and will continue to travel northward and get caught up in a system in the Pacific Northwest. So that's pulling away from us. For tonight, we'll have partly cloudy skies and temperatures in the low 70s. Again, an increase in that cloud cover in our coastal zones and in the valleys. Also looking at some fog in those areas as well. Temperatures tonight in San Diego County are going to be in the upper 60s and low 70s along the coast. A little cooler farther inland. Temperature in the desert only getting down to about 78 degrees. May see a couple showers in high elevation areas in California on Tuesday, but most of our region will be staying dry. Also quite a bit hotter over states like Nevada and Utah. Forecast for San Diego County into tomorrow. Temperatures mainly ranging through the upper 70s and low 80s at the coast. You head farther inland, you get a little bit warmer. Could be in the low 90s in spots and even triple digits in our desert zones. Futurecast, not a whole lot to point out here. Again, the big takeaway is how we'll have that valley fog, how we'll have that coastal fog pretty much every night through the early morning hours, but generally sunny skies, especially Wednesday through Friday. So again, looking at some pretty nice weather for the most part this week. Let's take you to those 5-day outlooks. You can see at the coast, your temps are going to hover in the upper 70s and low 80s for the next several days. Clearing conditions expected each and every day. Inland may have some times where we get those low clouds, but during the afternoon, sunshine really warms things up, getting to near 90 almost every day. In the mountain region, partly sunny and nice, upper 70s to low 80s. And for the deserts, we're talking about triple digits, so it will be hot. For KPBS, I'm meteorologist Julia Wyden.
Hundreds of swimmers hit the waves earlier this morning to swim around the Oceanside Pier. KPBS reporter Allison St. John says it's a long tradition on Labor Day.
350 people headed into the waves at 8:30 this morning for the 88th annual Labor Day Oceanside Pier swim. It's 1 mile around the end of the pier and back to the beach. The swimmers can be as young as 12 to over 70 years old. The Green Hat Heat are the 30 to 49-year-olds. The swim is organized every year by the Oceanside Swim Club to raise money for swimming lessons for young people. This year, the weather was overcast, but the swell was perfect, quite manageable. About 20 minutes after they set off, the swimmers emerged at the finish line on the beach at the other side of the pier. Everyone who completed the swim got a prize, a fishing lure on a lanyard to wear around their neck. Kevin Capulet was in the 25 to 29 age group. He has swum in the Labor Day Oceanside Pier swim for years.
It was tougher this year for me. Just currents, and it was a little bit of a pull out there, a little rip current. So, but it's fun.
Randy Ziegler, a former lifeguard, swam in the Purple Hat Heat, the over 70 division. He recommends anyone to try it.
We train between Tamarack and Pine Street. Catch you there.
This year's winning time was 16 minutes 53 seconds. Allison St. John, KPBS News.
I'm Miles O'Brien. On the next news hour, a look at Harvey's impact on cattle and crops and how ranchers are trying to put their lives back together. That's Monday on the PBS NewsHour.
After months of trying to repeal and replace the Affordable Care Act, Congress has moved on to other issues. But there are still things the Trump administration can do to undermine the health insurance markets. From KQED in San Francisco, health reporter April Dembosky and cartoonist Mark Fiore explain 3 things the White House is doing and 3 ways California is trying to counteract the federal moves.
I'm Mark Fiore. I'm a political cartoonist and animator. I'm self-employed, and I remember the pre-Obamacare days. It was the wild west of health insurance. Sick people couldn't get coverage, and the plan I had didn't cover anything I needed.
And I'm April Demboski. I'm the health reporter at KQED Public Radio. The Affordable Care Act helped a lot of folks like Mark, but it has plenty of critics, too. Republicans spent months trying to repeal and replace it.
Which made me nervous. I get my insurance through the Obamacare marketplace in California.
Conservatives say these marketplaces are poorly designed and falling apart. Trump says he wants to let Obamacare explode. But he isn't just letting the markets explode on their own. He's planting the dynamite.
There are 3 strategies the Trump administration is using to undermine Obamacare.
First, they stop advertising how to shop for plans.
That might not sound like much, but it can have a big impact on the success of the healthcare law.
See, it's all about risk pools. Insurance companies can't have only sick or old people in their pool. They also need young, healthy people who won't need as much medical care, but will still pay in.
A balanced pool means lower premiums for everybody, young and old.
Marketing is the carrot that encourages healthy people to get coverage. If you're sick, you want insurance. No need to sell you on the idea.
But for healthy people like me, we might need convincing. Without marketing nudging us to buy a plan, insurers could end up with too many sick people.
Quick California caveat. Since California runs its own marketplace, the state sets its own marketing budget, and there are no plans to skimp here.
Marketing was the carrot. Now for the stick.
The government doesn't just entice people to buy coverage. It forces them to. If you don't, you have to pay a penalty at tax time.
This is the individual mandate. It's the most unpopular part of Obamacare. Many people just hate the idea of government telling them to buy insurance.
Within hours of his inauguration, President Trump signed an executive order telling government agencies to go easy on enforcement.
So the IRS held back.
This got insurance companies pretty worried that their risk pools would get out of whack. They started thinking about raising premiums.
But there's another California caveat.
State officials have been meeting for months with those jittery insurance companies. They're working to tweak the contracts so insurers can make up losses in future years, just in case the feds cause chaos in the markets next year.
Now, the third strategy. This one has health insurers really worried and could translate into much higher premiums for some of us.
President Trump has threatened to stop key payments to insurance companies. This money is used to give low-income customers discounts on their copays and deductibles.
The thinking is, when coverage is more affordable, people re-up their plan, so that risk pool stays healthy.
President Trump has referred to these cost-sharing subsidies as bailouts. He wants to get rid of them.
If he does, some premiums in California will go up by 25% next year.
That's double what the premiums would be if the payments stay.
California caveat time.
Cover California has figured out an accounting trick to make sure the people whose plans do go up by 25% will get a bigger subsidy to cover the extra costs.
So people won't feel it in the wallet as much.
But either way, some of the damage is already done. Anthem Blue Cross is walking away from more than half the market in California. The insurance company says not knowing if those cost-sharing subsidies were coming through made it too unpredictable to do business in the individual market.
So the threats from the White House and the overall uncertainty about the future of the Affordable Care Act, it's driving up rates and driving away insurers.
And for Trump, that seems to be the point. If the market explodes, perhaps that will force lawmakers to come up with a new healthcare plan. Repeal and replace didn't work. Maybe explode and replace will.
But for me, it just brings up bad memories of the Wild West days of the past.
You can see more stories like this on kqed.org. Next month will be jam-packed with deadlines for keeping the government up and running before the next fiscal year. As NPR's Ron Elving explains, preventing a government shutdown has taken on a new urgency.
Some of you may remember an old pop song called "See You in September." I won't sing it. The idea of this song was a joyful reunion in the fall. But if you use that same phrase in Washington right now, it sounds more like a warning or even a threat. I'm Ron Elving, And today, in my office hours, we're going to be talking about the heavy agenda and the tight schedule that faces Congress when it finally gets back here from its August recess. Here's what President Trump says he wants Congress to do. Number one, go back to the health care issue and repeal and replace Obamacare. Number two, give him an infrastructure bill worth something like $1 trillion. And number three, reform the federal tax code for both businesses and individuals. Congress would dearly love to do all those things and may eventually do most of them, but not this September, because there are 3 other issues Congress has to deal with first, or we may be facing a government shutdown. Now, that's always a theoretical possibility every time we get to the end of a fiscal year at the end of September, but this year it looks like a real prospect because President Trump is saying he's not going to participate in the deal making unless he gets funding for his Mexican border wall. Now, the first thing they need to do is the budget resolution, both as a basis for the spending bills and also to set the rules that they hope to use for passing tax reform later on in the fall without filibusters. That's obviously important to that legislation. Then we need the spending bills. There are 12 of them. Only 4 have passed the House, 0 have passed the Senate. We're not going to see them all get done in just 12 legislative days, which is all we have in September. So there will be a continuing resolution. We've seen these before. They just keep things going. They kick the decisions down the road, and eventually we'll come back and pass those bills probably in one big omnibus late this fall. And then third, and perhaps most difficult, we have to raise the federal debt limit. That's because we've already passed the last limit that was set a couple of years ago. And we're going to run out of cash to pay the federal payroll, pay for all the things the federal government buys, and service the debt, the existing debt, which is now at about $20 trillion. If we don't service that debt, the United States goes into default on some of its obligations. That casts doubt on all other debt issued by the United States, and that is pretty much the gold standard for world credit markets, has been for generations. Not a happy prospect. So, see you in September. I'm Ron Elving at NPR. Thanks for coming to my office hours.
On Friday, Welk Resort Theater opened Kiss of the Spider Woman, a musical revamping of the Oscar-winning Brazilian film. The story focuses on a gay man and a political prisoner sharing a cell in a Latin American prison. Valentin is a tough revolutionary undergoing torture, and Melina is an unabashed gay man serving time for deviant behavior. Melina shares his fantasies about an actress, Aurora, who once played a Spider Woman. The musical runs through October 22nd at the Welk Resort Theater in Escondido. Some of the best sand sculptors in the world carved statues in San Diego this weekend for the U.S. Sandcastle Sculpting Challenge. The event wrapped up a 4-day run today at Broadway Pier in downtown San Diego. This is the winning piece. It's called Guardian Angel. An artist from Russia snatched the first place title this morning and the grand prize of more than $60,000. Here's a look at what we're working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom on Morning Edition Picture Perfect. San Diego scientists predicting people's appearances using their DNA. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition.